These products are used for valve repairs. A knife, which can be used to cut a damaged valve away from the base. Slow speed buffers, used to buff away the damaged rubber from the old valve base and to give texture to vulcanize to. A contour wheel is used at slow speed to buff the rubber. There are a variety of grits depending on the texture required. Normally 36 grit would be sufficient for a valve repair. A vacuum should be used to clean away the buff dust to ensure there's no recontamination, as there can be when using air to blow dust away. Vulcanizing fluid is again used to activate the bonding layer of the patch. When this process is finished, over a period of time the valve base will completely vulcanize to the tube. Valve bases are available for most tubes. Normally the most popular ones are for tractors. It's not always viable to replace all valve bases. Stitches are used to stitch down the valve base and ensure perfect contact with the prepared tube and that no air is trapped under the base. First, cut the damaged valve away from the base with a sharp knife. If the tube is badly ripped, it's recommended to put a tube patch over the ripped area and cut a new hole for the valve base in another location on the tube. Using a 36 grit contour wheel and slow speed buffer, completely buff the old base away until you buff down to the original tube. If this is not done, the new base has a tendency to lift up. Using a vacuum or brush that has no static will allow you to remove the dust without recontaminating the buffed surface. We don't recommend using air to blow the dust away due to possible contaminants in the air. Next, apply an even coat of vulcanizing fluid to the clean buffed surface. Don't overbrush the solution, as this can weaken the vulcanization. The fluid should not dry in direct sunlight, but should be placed in a shaded area to dry. Drying time varies depending on the temperature and humidity, but it must be dry before attempting to apply the valve base. When the vulcanizing fluid is dry, we can remove the core housing from the valve. We can then remove the aluminium protective foil from the patch. Using a piece of wire or a valve tool with a long shaft, locate the valve correctly onto the tube with the holes lined up. Stitch down the patch, starting next to the valve and millimetre by millimetre, moving out to the edge of the patch. It's important to stitch all 4 sections of the valve base, millimetre by millimetre, to ensure no air is trapped under the valve base. We can then remove the cellophane and proceed to stitch around the outside edge of the patch. If the edge should lift, the repair will fail. Replace the core housing and then try to pull the repaired valve off the tube. Next, reinflate the tube to ensure the repair is okay and that there are no other punctures.